Can you believe it's been 2 years, Corey?
No.
2 years, right? We were sitting in my backyard and you were talking about what you and Amy had been doing for a year. And from that day, it's been 2 years. Do you think we'd be here sitting in a studio talking about what we've done for the last 2 years?
I remember it well. I remember coming here for a wedding with my family, sitting there. We were just chilling.
Yeah.
In the sun, in the desert.
Yeah.
By the pool.
Yep.
Felt like we're at a hotel where we're just in your backyard. And
we try.
Right.
Overachievers.
Right. And I remember Scott saying, I had no clue that you were considering starting a business.
Yeah.
And then you said, hey, let's talk about how you make it successful. And you're like, by the way, I'm starting a business.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we chatted for hours.
Yeah. While Bree and Lake and JoJo were hanging out with Jess.
Yeah. We, I think Lakin was napping upstairs. Bree was sitting with us.
Yeah.
With JoJo, just enjoying the outside.
It was like 2 hours. It went by like that.
And yeah, we just talked about who, right, you were working with and what it was and where you wanted it to go. And I think with Scott and I, it was more about like, hey, this is, what we wanted to do for us just as a business. And we thought about, this has got legs. This is really impactful. This stuff is life-changing.
For sure.
On what you were thinking about.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
What he's already doing. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And we got to meet Amy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I remember Corey coming back from that trip and being like, we have to chat. I reconnected with, old friends and chatted about business and told them what we're doing. And they're so excited. And it's obviously a little nerve wracking. It's like, I don't know, who are these people?
Right.
But yeah.
It's weird because I don't know if Corey remembers this, but probably 15 years ago, we were floating in my pool in Chandler and you were working on the wellness business.
Right.
And I'm like, we should do something. We should create a subscription program for wellness. And Corey asked me the best question. He asked me at this time too. He goes, so what do you bring to the business? And floating in my pool that day in Chandler, I'm like, so you want to go play hockey later?
Avoidance.
For sure.
Nice. Yeah. But no, getting to chat more about, what you guys were thinking about doing for your business and how long Corey had known the both of you. And then finally getting to meet you. That was pretty awesome. Pretty cool to bring you onto the team. Cause I think we talked last night about like the gaps. Like it's just such a good fit. The four of us together. Like, there's certain strengths that Corey and I brought, and we knew we were weak in a couple different areas. And it was like, oh man, they just fit perfectly. Like we've rounded out the team, and that feels really, really good.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. And it was awesome to hear last night talking about it. Cause, when we first got, this is our fourth retreat now, right? That's a full year's worth of retreats. We've been really intentional about it. And when we were talking about it last night together, that first retreat was really, I almost want to say intimidating, but it was just very nervy because we were walking into an established group of four, right? And all there really was a friendship between Corey and I, and Corey's statement that, hey, there can be something here.
Yeah.
And then 6 weeks later, we were turning a lot of things on its head.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it was, Scott and I talked a lot about it before that first retreat of knowing that, we were coming in again to four that were already established and working on something. And I think it was important that him and I talked a little bit more about, making sure it was a right fit for us and for you guys. And I think there was some, I asked you last night, like, what did you think of us when you first met us now that we know each other 2 years in? Like, what was the initial, thought process? Or because just our backgrounds and coming from a business world versus an education, very different, right? We're learning from you guys, hopefully we're, vice versa. And I think we were intentional, him and I, before we got into the room, of like not overpowering things, of making sure we were listening, because it was kind of like that interview process between all of us of like, is this a good fit for us with you, and vice versa.
And I think the thing that stood out for me the most at that point in time was like, I went in the same way, like a little bit of like, okay, we'll see. And I feel like it was that like feeling the water, you know, in the first hour or so when we were kind of sitting down at that first retreat. And I think that's when it became so apparent. Like it just was so easy with all of us. Like just, it's easy to communicate. People are real. They're authentic. That came across right away. And so for me, that was that biggest like, oh, all right. These are some awesome people. Let's do this.
It's so funny hearing them both say that. When we drove back to the airport, leaving your place, Jess, immediately, Amy is amazing. Like that's where she went right away. And you were by far the most observant and quietest overall, but most impactful when you spoke, because it was so limited in that first time. We both walked away hyper impressed. Like that is someone that we had no idea he had in his back pocket. That is such a huge asset to the team. So I think it's interesting. You had the same feeling of being reserved.
We did, but I also think like you, Corey, I've known you, I don't know how many years now, 12 years maybe now. You tend to surround yourself or attract, whatever the word might be, to real people, to authentic, genuine people. And that's rare, I think, in the world that we live in today. And so it was, again, really cool to come in and go, wow, like he was right. When we left, I turned to him and I said, Amy is brilliant. She is super smart. And like I said, you said, oh, people think I'm shy. I know you're not shy, you know. Yeah, and I think there is a difference between being shy and being observant. When you listen to people, you are listening, observing, your eyes are up, you really, you know, embrace some of that. Hey, I'm here. And I think that also, like I said, coming back to you, you have always surrounded yourself with authentic, genuinely real people. And so when we came into this, I thought the same thing, like, who's going to be here? And I should have thought differently, just knowing you.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. I want to actually just ask you, I've never asked you, we've obviously proceeded with the business, right? But like, how did that first weekend go for you?
Yeah.
It was the first time you were really working with us as a group, and I appreciate you guys being reserved. I'm never reserved. So I know that I came in the room like a bull in a china shop.
Like the hardest thing for you to do is be a fly on the wall.
Yeah.
You say, I'm just going to be a fly on the wall. You preface a lot of meetings that way.
And then I buzz around.
right. You buzz around and pester people.
Yeah. You're like,
it's all good, right?
Hi.
Right. So I just, before I answer that, I want to double click on what you said, because I appreciate that you say that. And I like to surround myself with people who are real. And the way I view it is, we get one go at this thing called life, right? And if we're going to be super intentional about who we're going to spend it with, because creating a business is going to be a major time investment, right? I want to do it with people that I enjoy building a business with and spending time with.
Yeah.
So early on, to answer your question, I kind of felt my role being the facilitator and the convener and the host of that gathering.
Yeah.
And I knew everyone, and I pulled everyone together, and I'm like, let's just facilitate an opportunity for everyone to let who they are shine, right? Share their personality. Let's see if we all enjoy time together.
Yeah.
And we were laughing and telling jokes. And when we worked hard, we put our head down and we got serious, and we had serious conversations, but we also really enjoyed it. And we valued having each other on the team. And it was an experiment. It was a social experiment in a way.
It was.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so to answer your question, like all of you, I didn't know how it was going to go. I know the relationship I have with each and every one of you was valuable and seemed to work.
Yeah.
But now there's going to be full dynamics of bringing everyone together. And hey, let's face it, we're still working through it today, 2 years later. I mean, it's not perfect.
Yeah.
We're intentional about working on it every day. But early on, I mean, when we tell the story of how we came together, we started with what are our unique abilities. We did personality tests.
Yeah.
We did. We
Because
figured
we're all super nerdy about this.
Right.
Which is why it never seems like work. And I feel like when you talk about like, oh, we laughed and we had fun, and it was like so early on, it was just easy. And it's not like we're just having fun and screwing off all the time. It's like we were talking for so many hours every day about these like highly intellectual things and the content and this vision for what we were building, but it didn't seem like work. It was fun.
Isn't that kind of the goal?
Fun. Yeah.
Right. I think everybody hears that statement of do what you love and you never work a day in your life.
Yeah.
Well, life is hard. Life is work. So why not have your job or your career be something you love? And I think for me personally, this is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And it has the most reward at the end of it, but it's also the easiest. It's just the hardest. It's the most work, but it's just so easy to do every day. I don't ever have
by easy, you mean like satisfying?
Yeah.
Right.
Like no matter what hard thing I have to learn how to go do.
Yeah.
No matter what hard conversation I have, no matter what silly thing I have to deal with that I don't want to deal with, that I haven't dealt with for 20 years, it's easy because of the people I get to do it with and why I'm doing it. I think that's the whole point behind our company.
Mm-hmm.
Time kind of flies, doesn't it?
Oh yeah.
Sometimes we get caught up in long conversations like, yeah, we should probably go execute on some things too, right?
Yeah.
Amy's laughing.
Yeah.
I think the thing that you had mentioned, and one of the changes that I've seen in you is there is a lot of, there's a lot of stress to what we're doing to building a business. But at the end of the day, you are healthier, physically, mentally, and I think it had to be the right business for you, but I also see a huge shift and I think this is a lot more stressful than working for someone else. There's a lot on the line here for all four of us. And that was the one thing that I saw in you and even, our family is just the mental state and the physical state. Although we're working really hard and there's a lot, like I said, on the line, it doesn't seem as though it weighs heavy on you.
Yes. That's what I meant. It's a better way to put it than it's the hardest thing I've ever done. It's easy.
Yeah.
That's kind of.
Yeah.
What do you think are some of those factors that make
your
make it more
transition. That
what
moves, like
contributed?
what contributed to working.
Because I could leave
why are we more tolerable?
Yeah.
Right. I
For
can leave the
others?
witness.
Yeah.
I have some ideas that I think
It's a
is,
deep topic to unpack. I'll keep it concise as I can.
But I think
It's intentionality in everything, right? For the last 20 years, my personal journey has been very intentional to get to this point. And when you and I started talking 2 years ago, I told you, I said, I am going to build a business to this size. And if I can't build it to this size with you guys, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
When you and I started talking about what you were doing and the opportunity behind the thoughts that you had, I knew we could build it to that size. So the change is that the last 20 years of my career have been intentionally designed to build a broad spectrum of knowledge to be able to build a successful business. And now I'm doing that, and I'm doing it with some of my best friends in the world, right? You and I have been close, and you have meant a great deal to me through that journey. She's been my best friend since I was 4 years old, right? And Amy has come into my life and been someone who instantly made a value to me. And at 47, that's not as easy as it seems. It should be. And that change, that first weekend, that conversation, that's the change. And you guys probably have seen it slower than it should have been, like the stout urgency that I show every once in a while.
Yeah.
So the biggest change is that all the intentionality had kind of boiled up to a point where it was the most stressful it had ever been, because I'm tired of working 60 hours a week because I'm driven for someone else. And now I'm doing 60 hours a week for us. Mm-hmm. And that's way less stressful.
Yeah. And the reason I think I say that is because of who we are at Fusion and what we're putting out there as a brand and a product is there. And I don't know what the statistics are, but there aren't a lot of people who could take the leap like we're taking to be entrepreneurs, to feel that they're in the day, they're in the grind, they're working for someone else. And what is it that will help to bring to them for both their work and their personal that allows them to continue to perform high and feel less stressed and know what fills their bucket? That is, to me, right? Again, not everyone has the opportunity. Mm-hmm. And so how do we, enable those and empower those to feel when they are working for others that they have contribution, that there is growth for them personally and professionally?
Yeah. I mean, to build on that, I remember early on, we were all talking about working alone.
Yeah.
Running this crazy ride solo or working together. And I think we all said we really appreciate, even though it's challenging, we really appreciate working through this as a team. Mm-hmm. And I think, maybe to double down on one of the things you were saying is you trusted it, the team, and we were a support mechanism for each other.
Yeah.
So if there are tough days, you can lean into us, right? Mm-hmm. And that's powerful. I've tried to do the entrepreneurial ride alone. And when you get stuck, you got to try to troubleshoot and problem solve on your own. And it weighs heavily on you. And there's a lot on your shoulder. And that pressure isn't shared really with anyone.
Right.
And so you just feel all of that mounting pressure to try to get through the tough patches on your own. And it eats at you.
Yep.
And at least, I'm not saying we can dissipate it together, but it's nice to know that people have your back through good times and bad. Mm-hmm. Right. And is that part of it?
100%. Right. Like, we as a company, we talk about, the world talks about work-life balance. We talk about work-life fusion, right? And this is the first time where it's really easy in my life to fuse work and life, because I've had this conversation with you. I went through a natural progression in my diary. I wrote this down night after night, thinking about fusion. And it went from fusion is my job to fusion is my company to ultimately I am fusion. We are fusion. And when that realization came, it's like, there is no more life-work balance. This company is part of my life, a huge part of my life. It is a vehicle to facilitate my purpose in life. And we have a company purpose, and it ties directly to each of our individual purposes. And my purpose in life can be facilitated through this company. So yeah, it makes everything easier because there's so much on the line, but it's so much that is around my intrinsic value system, not some other companies.
Yeah. So you don't need to own a business to have that. No, I mean, I think what you're touching on is self-awareness. Yeah. You said you were keeping a diary, like you're journaling, which is part of self-reflection, right? And so you were like meditating, or at least reflecting on like you and what this business means to you and how this integrates with your life. That's some of what we're here to do. So it's like, it's almost like it's a testimonial of the transformation you had personally as it impacts what we do as a company. Sorry, I cut you off, Amy. What were you going to say?
Well, I was just going to add too, like, you talk about, all of us were talking about how this just seems so easy. And I think that ties in, right? We even talked about it as one of our core values, this idea of like filling buckets, right? Yeah, it's really, really hard work. And there are days that are stressful, but as long as, we're filling up more than we're draining out of that bucket on a daily basis, which we certainly are, it's so worthwhile. And I think it puts us all in such a good space, and allows us to be successful. And, we look at that model and we talk about how that impacts what we do on a daily basis, and how really getting not only the self-reflection and self-assessment and self-awareness, but it's like, okay, now that you know yourself, what are those things that fill your bucket, that drain your bucket? And I think, all of us certainly have a handle on that, but now how do we help other people figure that out for themselves, because that is something that right now, especially, is so prevalent. Like, people are stressed out, they're burned out. Yeah. And what, I know you talk about all the time. What do people say? Like, right? What do they say? You ask somebody how's it going? How are they doing?
I'm busy.
Busy. I don't have enough time.
Yeah.
I'm stressed.
Busy.
Busy.
I'm
Yeah.
busy. Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And part of it is how we ask, but it's the culture and it's how people are truly feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we're all busy, right? I mean,
Mhm.
of course, we're doing things every day and we find ways to fill our lives. The challenge is, what are we filling our lives up with, and how do we feel about it, and how do we think about it, right?
Yeah.
Part of it's the mindset. And then part of it's just how is what you're doing making you feel and others feel. And I think what we're saying is, when we work together, we're aligning our purpose and we're trying to help other people. That's filling our buckets, meaning at the end of the day, we feel pretty good. We're not exhausted. We're not drained. We don't need to feel like, at the end of the day, I need to go do all these things to help rejuvenate my energy and fill my bucket. And it's still good to do those things, but we're not as drained by the end of the day doing what we're doing together. And that's what we want to share with people.
It's a live example yesterday. You had some other things that you had to do for some of the day that we were working together.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a great day with a very loose agenda to start, and then hyper productive. And working with you guys, especially face to face, it fills my bucket.
Yeah.
One of the other things that fills my bucket is my wife, and especially the time we get to spend right before we go to sleep, just chatting. Well, she wasn't getting her bucket filled yesterday. She was doing performance reviews for people. So she's in bed, asleep when I get to bed. Not okay. I need my bucket filled, because as much as my bucket just got filled by everybody that I worked with today, and it did, I was hyper energetic, not ready to go to sleep, full bucket. I got to share it with you, because you fill my bucket more. So let's freaking get this thing overflowing. And it was so hard to wake her up. And she's like, fine, we can talk.
I mean, and
well, sleep fills her bucket too.
yeah, it does. But I wasn't annoyed by it. I mean, I was tired, but I wasn't annoyed by it. And then once we got into the conversation, I think, that also helped me. Just being in leadership and working with others, and having, you had asked me, wow, that's all, like you had 3 of those yesterday, and then you had a customer meeting, and it's a long day. But I also, this team fills my bucket, and where and I didn't think about it when I was younger, but I was very intentional about where I worked and who I worked with. And when I saw an environment that really was a match, I probably unconsciously in my 20s was intentional about making sure I moved to that match. I have been blessed in working at companies, various companies, large and small, in teams, leading teams. And I look back at all of those, and I have surrounded myself, including with Fusion, with people who are genuine, who do self-reflect, who are, and I think what I've tried to do, and even yesterday was, although performance conversations can be tough and they don't always go as you've planned, I think that it still fills my bucket, although it can be draining. It still fills my bucket to connect with people on where they are and how there's opportunity to get better.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think it's a really good place for us to say, we're going to do that. Mm-hmm. And we have a intentionality and a realness and a drive to change the world. And I have no doubt our company is going to do that. And I couldn't ask to do it with a better group of people. So I'm glad we got to share some time together, guys.
Yeah. Agreed.
Thank you all.